This last lesson on exclusive HTML5 features, I want to cover probably one of the most important features of HTML5. So I created a new file and saved it as sectioningformatting.html. And let's go ahead and use our Emmet shortcuts to quickly mock up an HTML title and a body. And in the title, we're going to call it sectioning and more formatting tags. And then the body, here's where things get interesting now. Let's use this as an opportunity to create a mock-up, a blog on healthy living. It's really important to eat healthy, so let's create a mock-up. I've mentioned before that a mock-up is just a scaled-down version of a full website, and HTML is great for that because it takes all the styling and everything out of the actual website and just really focuses on the content. So in our blog on healthy living, let's use some HTML5 sectioning tags. Some of the new sectioning tags that are introduced as part of HTML5 are the header and the footer. You might imagine what goes into the header and footer. And the footer is easy to imagine what might go in here. It's copyright information. Use the code tag in the footer. And then the footer might also have a line break with links to the about, with another link to terms of service, and maybe a third link to privacy policy. Okay, so the footer is easy. The footer has the standard information that generally should be at the bottom of every page. And now in the header, that's where things get a little bit interesting. The header is generally a section where you expect certain elements of the section to be repeated throughout multiple pages. So this could take the form of a brand logo in the header. And maybe clicking on this brand logo takes you back to the home page. It can also be a navigation bar, which actually, believe it or not, got its own tag in HTML5. So there's a nav tag, which is a special tag that you can add in the header for navigation link. And generally, navigation links are unordered lists with list items that are formatted a special way. So nav link 1, another list item for nav link 2, third list item for nav link 3. And it's important to distinguish this, and I actually didn't add a head tag here. I was going to say it's important to distinguish the head and the header. And the reason we don't include this information in the header or in the head is because to an HTML document, the head tag is invisible. We went over what to include in the head tag. None of the tags that we normally include in our head tag are really formatting elements. They're generally references to links or meta tags or scripts. So all of this actually is still part of the body, but for organization purposes and also for accessibility reasons, we have special and new sections for each of these items. This is a very common structure that you find in many websites where there's a navigation menu with different navigation links. And so HTML5 made that an actual standard that now should use a separate tag to describe these different navigation elements. So we have a header so far with a nav tag inside with a navigation menu, and then a footer. So since this is our blog on healthy living, let's call nav link 1 recipes. Let's call nav link 2 our blog. And let's call nav link 3 about. And again, this is just a mock-up, so it's not going to look pretty at all. It's a mock-up in pure HTML. So we're not too focused on the prettiness of it, but we do want to categorize it in a way that somebody else can come in and build on. And we're not using any CSS, otherwise we can also give these lists particular styles that make them go across the page with the brand logo at the very left and create a decent navigation bar. We're going to do that further in the course, but I just want to focus on the new sectioning elements that are available to you in order to emphasize better readability and better organization of our web documents. So now we get to the main body of our document, and you might imagine there's a tag for that, and it's called, rightly so, the main tag. And inside the main tag is where the main content of your web page goes. So far we have a header and a footer. The header has some navigation. It might even have a limited time sale that's going on. So let's say there's a limited time sale for 24 hours on vegetables. And this might be a promotion that you want to display on every page. We would probably want to put this in a small tag to make it not as annoying. We can nest this inside a link too if we had a separate page for learning more information about it. So we can say, A, and then close the A tag after the end of the small tag in case we wanted to. But we don't have a page for that yet, so let's just leave it as is. And now we get to our main tag again. And inside the main tag, things get a little bit more interesting, because here's where we would normally define the header and say, let's say this is the home page and welcome to healthy living. And then inside our main tag and on our home page, maybe we want to display certain articles from our blog. So here I want to talk a little bit about how web designers and web developers used to implement this and how it should be implemented with HTML5. It used to be that we would just create a div for everything. And we would say div ID equals featured posts, another div with an ID of header image, and this would probably go above the featured post because the header image or the hero image is generally the first thing that visitors see, and then maybe another div with an ID of more information. And this might have something like why you should eat healthily and things like that. Well, we don't really do this anymore with HTML5. It's not good practice, and it's not an effective way to structure and organize your content. We have various different sectioning tags at our disposal that we should be using instead. One of the tags is an actual section tag. There might be a section about featured posts, and then this section could have an H2, and we can call it featured posts. And let's say these are not full-on blog posts, but more like editorial posts. So let's say featured editorial posts, and then in our featured editorial posts we may have a paragraph with post 1, another paragraph with post 2, and a third paragraph with post 3. We'll come back and edit these in a little bit, but I also want to point out that it's possible to have multiple sections on the same page. So one section might be check out our recipes, and then there might be a link, recipe 1, recipe 2, and recipe 3. However, this can be perceived as a navigation, right? So let's actually put this inside a nav tag. Have a nav here and a nav here. So the navigation tag doesn't necessarily have to go inside the header. It can be inside the body if it's a miniaturized navigation referring to other parts of your website. These tags make your website much more accessible, and not all of these standards are implemented yet across all assistive technologies, but sooner or later they will be, and this will be the new way to make your websites more accessible, is through these different tags that give contextual information about your content. Now suppose you also want to create a little bit of a subscribe form off to the side, and that's not necessarily part of your main content, right? So you can actually put that in a separate tag called an aside, and then here say create a form. We'll remove the action for now. We don't really need that yet. And then the form has a paragraph called subscribe to our newsletter. And let's make this an H3 just so that it stands out a little bit. And then inside the form we'll probably have an input with a type email, and then maybe another input with a type submit, and value equals subscribe. And again, we can use a CSS to put this off to the side, but for now I just want to emphasize the structure of what a website could look like. So now let's go back into our section with featured editorial posts and add some more content in here. I'm going to expand each of these a little bit and also enclose each of these in a new tag called the article tag. And the article tag is designed exactly for this. It's designed for content that's self-contained. So each of these is an article. So we can put it inside an article tag. Each post we're going to store inside an article tag. So create a third article tag with a paragraph tag inside it. Now our featured editorial posts from the blog are in their own section with their own article tags, so that it's just very clear on what this content is about. Each article is self-contained, meaning it probably has most of the information that you would need to make an informed decision about healthy living. So now I'm going to go and brainstorm some content ideas, and I'll be back with some post content.